We live in a twilight world. Let's do a quick recording. I've got a coffee here, so if you hear me slurping or burping, that's why. The bad news is summer is coming to an end, like it always does. But the good news is, because we've got shitty weather now, it's a bit wet, raining a lot, we can spend some time on the internet with the sole purpose of getting people off the internet. Yeah, that's what I'm about. Yeah, I want to try and influence you and convince you that the internet is the most evil weapon ever existed and that you are part of the problem by being on it, and that you should get off it immediately and go out and live a good life. Have some adventures, fall in love. Yeah, don't be a part of this evil control system that is the internet. Yeah, be honest with yourself. Yeah, that you that you've made a big mistake signing up to this, and move forward and delete it. Get off it. And before anyone tries to be a smart ass and say, what about you? What about you, Les? You're on the internet. Guys, I spent 34 years never, ever being swayed or convinced to join the internet or social media. First time I saw, like Facebook, for example, I just felt like, ugh. It was like, I was with a girl at the time, and the first time I saw Facebook was the first time I seen a laptop in real life. And when she said, hey, check out this new thing, and held it in my face, it was like holding a turd toward my face, and I was just like, ugh, get that away from me. And throughout my life, I've never, ever been tempted or desired to be a part of the internet. Things got fucking crazy in 2020, and it became very clear to me that the internet is like the thing, the big weapon that is controlling people's imaginations, thus controlling their thoughts, thus controlling their beliefs, thus controlling the reality, and so on. As you all know, thoughts become beliefs, beliefs become reality. An illusion shared by all creates the world that we live in, which is all an illusion, and the internet is a big part of that. Anyway, I'm rambling. Let's get back onto this, yeah? Let me have a sip of my coffee. Military ranking 2025. Yeah, superficial, very piss-takey. Let's go. The largest, most powerful air force in the world belongs to the US of A. Do you agree with that? Yeah, I agree with that. I've got no reason to disagree with that. The internet and everyone else claims that the USA has the most powerful air force in the world right now. Yeah, the most amount of fighter jets, bombers, flying tankers, transporters, even like the AWACS surveillance stuff, all of it. USA has the largest air force in the world. Now, what they have on paper versus what they have in actual physical reality, but how much is actually operational, and then how much is lethal, and how much can be sustained during a war, they're two different things. I haven't personally gone around to every US airbase and conducted an investigation to see how many fighter jets and bombers the USA has and how many of them are operational and lethal. I haven't. I suspect a lot of them exist on paper, and a lot of them are just sitting there on a runway not doing anything. For whatever reasons, I'm sure someone somewhere is sitting in an office making decisions, saying, yeah, look, we've got X amount of fighter jets, but they don't all need to be operational right now because we're not at war. Let's only keep a percentage of them going, and the others are there in reserve in case we do go for a war. Because at the end of the day, I think they reckon it's something like for every one fighter jet, you need like 200 people. From the mechanics, from the engineers, a pilot, a backup pilot, the trainer of the pilots, yeah, the person that's running the runway, the chef on the airbase, the cleaner, the postman, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, yes, the USA has the largest air force. China supposedly now has the largest, most powerful navy in the world. Do you agree? Yes. I've got no reason to disagree with this. Same applies. How many vessels, ships, destroyers, frigates, aircraft carriers that they actually have on paper versus how many they have in actual physical reality, versus how many are actually operational, versus how many are actually lethal, versus how many can actually be sustained during a war. Different story, yeah? I'm sure a lot of them are just sitting in a dock right now because, you need sailors, right? These naval ships are very complex, yeah? You've got to have a lot of engineers, firefighters, medics, cooks, chefs. So perhaps a lot of them, I suspect, are just sitting around in a dock. I suspect a lot of them only exist on paper, because at the end of the day, when China's trying to flex as a show of force and present this to the world, this information, we have the largest navy, they're probably going to be exaggerating, right? All war is based on deception. It's better to make everyone believe you have a larger navy, air force, army, whatever, than you actually do. But once again, I have not sailed around the ocean counting how many Chinese vessels actually exist, but I'm going to go with it. Russia supposedly has the largest means of production for tanks. Yeah, the most amount of factories to build and repair tanks. I heard they can, if they wanted to, make 1,200 tanks a year. They've got enough facilities and factories to do this. And it's all within their nation. It's all self-sustained. They don't have to outsource anything. Yeah? So everything from the turret to the track to the engine is all produced in Russia. And yeah, man, they dominate the tank production world. Although the tank is starting to become very obsolete. But we won't get into that. Russia has also supposedly got the largest stockpile of nuclear warheads. But they don't have the means to actually launch them, via rocket, missile, whatever. So suppose, I didn't mention this with the USA. Suppose the USA has less nuclear warheads, but they have more missiles and rockets to actually launch them, if that makes sense. So once again, do I agree with this? Yeah, why not? I've got no reason not to. Although I will say, a lot of the videos I've seen online, supposedly showing all these tank factories, do look very CGI. They do look very computer generated and off. But whatever, a lot of these modern cameras do just make everything look like that anyway. I'm sure, that's a different conspiracy for a different day. But I'm sure all of these modern cameras deliberately make everything that they film look CGI and crisp. So us as humans, we have a harder time looking at something going, okay, that's clearly computer generated and that's real. Because they're matching the textures on purpose. But anyway, different conspiracy for a different day. Iran supposedly has the largest production of what they call loitering drones or suicide drones or kamikaze drones. One-way drones that the drone itself is the munition, is the thing that flies into the target, the building, whatever, and blows up. Yeah, it's not reusable. Shahed drone, as you can see in the picture there, is probably the most famous one. I'm sure at some point in your time you've either heard or seen the image of a Shahed drone. What we're told is strategically, the reason that Iran has gone for just producing, thousands upon thousands of these drones is that if they go to war with Israel, they can just send such a large wave of these that it will overwhelm the surface-to-air Iron Dome missile defense system. And as you know, it's quite mainstream now, but I'm the one to put it out there. But that, that would just create a fireworks display in the sky, making the war seem very real for everyone. Yeah. This is also being used in Ukraine. Iran is supplying Russia with these Shahed drones, these kamikaze drones, and they fly very slowly. And then obviously the Patriot missile systems take them out over the city, creating a fireworks display. And that, of course, for those on the ground that don't really understand the concept of illusion warfare, this all seems very real, right? All these explosions and fireworks going off above your head. And then obviously the next day, you're going to be walking the streets, you're going to be seeing little bits of plastic on the streets from these Shahed drones and all that kind of stuff, making it all very real. But anyway, we won't get into that today. That's a separate video. Same again, the online videos I've seen of these warehouses are just stacked as far as the eye can see with these Shahed drones. Do look very CGI, they do look very off. But nevertheless, do I agree Iran has the largest production means when it comes to kamikaze drones? Yeah. Sure, why not? Now, Britain. If we were to believe the media, Britain has the largest, or smallest, depends which way you look at it, absolute joke clown army. And military in general, but mainly the army. I think it depends where you are in the world. It might be different for you. You might not hear this. But over here in the UK, in Great Britain, we are endlessly told how bad, how pathetic, how humiliating our military is. And this has been going on for a couple of years now. Like a decade at least. Midway through the Afghanistan war. Endlessly we hear about what a joke the military is. How small it is, right? How it's a shadow of its former self. Like in regard to all the Western militaries, ours is the smallest. Apparently, like all three branches, Army, Navy and Air Force, if you got them together, they wouldn't even fill up Wembley Stadium. Less than 200,000 in total. I think it's around 130, including the reserves. You hear things like how we've got more... The British military has more horses than it does tanks. It's got more admirals than it has warships. Yeah. Things like this, the Queen Elizabeth aircraft carrier, the supposedly the best aircraft carrier in the world, it breaks down every 5 minutes. The first time they launched it, it broke down on the first day. It's relentless. It's constantly breaking down. Absolute joke. The Trident nuclear system. Last time they test fired the Trident submarine nuclears, they kind of just, like a dud, just fell out of the submarine and just sort of just flopped into the ocean. There's a recruitment problem. They can't recruit enough. Everyone wants to leave. A few years back, they did like voluntary redundancies because they wanted to get rid of 10,000. 30,000 people applied for the voluntary redundancy. Yeah. They just want out. We could go on and on, right? The propaganda is insane about how bad and terrible the British Army is. Apparently, if we went to war with Russia, we would run out of artillery shells within 2 weeks. And we don't really have the facilities to restock this ammunition. What else is there? Oh, equal equalities. Like, they've basically been promoting women and people of colour above actual, people of merit for a long, long time now. So in all the key positions of power or in leadership within the Army, Navy and Air Force, you've got women and people of colour. Now, if you want to destroy anything, put women in charge of it. Simple as that. You don't do that when you're acting, with your best interests, especially with war. You don't fuck around with that kind of thing. So yeah, man, the propaganda has been going on for a long, long time. Now, do I agree with it? No, I do not agree with that. That is all part of the grand Huge deception. Yeah, it's all to mislead people. So when someone like me comes along and says, yeah, the British Empire is still alive, yeah, the British Empire is the phantom menace that everyone is looking for. They're the ones doing all the false flags. They're the ones running around in the shadows, engineering all of these world stage events as to what they are. People are going to laugh you out the room, laugh me out the room. Because they're going to go on YouTube and Google and they're just going to see endless news articles about how pathetic the military is, the British military, how underfunded it is, how undermanned it is. Also coinciding with this, what they've been doing for a very, very long time. Well, since the beginning of time, they keep most of Britain, England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland in poverty. Yeah. Run down, looking like shit, with most people in poverty. Once again, this is to create the deception that Britain is a has-been, a nothing. They're not even anything anymore. They're just an old man farting in the wind. But I will say that, yes, okay, that military that they're presenting and putting forward to the world, that is a joke. That is an absolute joke on purpose. The military that any Tom, Dick and Harry within the UK can join is a joke. Yeah? But within Britain, you have the City of London. And I would say they have the largest, most powerful, most influential clandestine operation network. Which is a term I've just pulled out of my arse to describe everything in which I'm going to talk about. So espionage, double agents, secret armies, private armies, covert ops, black ops, and then controlling all of these terrorists and rebel groups around the world. The reason the City of London / Britain doesn't invest in aircraft carriers and tanks and fighter jets is because they are all in on espionage and intelligence. Most importantly, controlling everyone else's intelligence agencies. Controlling the CIA, controlling Mossad, controlling the KGB or whatever the newer one's called, the FSG. Controlling NATO, controlling China and so on. Double agents, that's obviously that's a very important one, yeah? So with double agents, it's all well and good having the largest air force in the world. But if all the people in the key positions are actually double agents that are more loyal to the City of London than they are their own nation, what good is it? Same with China having the largest navy in the world. What good is having a ridiculously powerful navy if all of the admirals, or a select few of admirals, are actually working against the Chinese Navy and are working for the City of London? They're a double agent. Because all you got to do is send your fighter jets or send all your warships into the wrong location on the wrong day and they're going to get wiped out. Yeah? Not that they're about that, obviously. These guys are more about creating a war and keeping the war going on theatrically, like shadowboxing. That's what it's more about. Yeah? They're not interested in actually slaughtering the world. They want the war to go on. And, having each opponent, instead of actually next to each other throwing punches and connecting, they're kept apart and they're shadowboxing in each other's direction. That's a good metaphor to use, is shadowboxing. For those that don't know, people are shadowboxing. They are throwing punches for real, but they're not hitting anything, yeah? They're just hitting their silhouette, which is being projected on the wall. Obvious examples we can see of that is the Ukraine war right now. And also what's very clear of the Ukraine war, or has become very clear now in 2025, which is what I've been saying since day one, is Britain and the special forces of Britain and the intelligence agency of Britain has a huge hand in Ukraine. But not only just controlling Ukrainian forces, they're also the other side of the line and helping the Russians as well. This is what people don't understand. They fund both sides of the war because the secret societies of Russia, the secret societies of the West, they're all the same team. They are Team Vampire, and they feed off humans. They don't care about race. They don't care about religion. They don't care about national borders, because all of that stuff really is an illusion. And they know that. It's only us simple-minded plebs at the bottom that believe in race, religion, borders, all these identities that are only exist in our minds and we attach to them. But most of these guys that come up through the secret societies, they're trained in the esoteric arts, in the occult world, and they understand that everything is an illusion, especially silly things like race, religion, and nationalities. Does this make sense? Recently we had a bombing. Israel bombed Doha, the capital of Qatar, right? And it turns out that British fuel tankers helped these bombers get there. Yeah, the British are always around in every war. They're not interested in fighting the war. They're interested in puppeteering the war. They don't want to be on the chessboard. They want to be the ones overlooking the chessboard, moving all of the pieces around. But like I said, they're not really interested in the pieces connecting. They don't want the game to finish. They want the game of chess to go on for as long as it can possibly go on for. Because these people are interested. They're not humans. They're vampires, and their main goal is keeping the false reality alive. And how they do that is deception, theatricality, which has the sole purpose of making us believe in it. The second we stop believing in it, it all falls apart. But the thing is, things like war, and especially even worse than war, is the idea that a war is around the corner or about to come onto your doorstep. It's so frightening to most people that they are too frightened to just say, no, I don't believe in this. And therefore, via fear, they're forced to believe in it. Yeah. The secret armies, that's another one. Things like Operation Gladio. See, what the British cleverly did is and when I say British, I don't mean British people, because they've been the biggest victims of all. Yeah. And they're doing the best in fighting back against the British Empire, which is quite a kind of a paradox, right? But anyway, the Empire, the City of London Empire, created World War II and faked the death of the British Empire. And their whole thing was setting up secret armies all across Europe, which they'd done under the guise of fighting the Soviet Union. But the thing is that they created the Soviet Union. This is what people miss, right? People are still caught up in thinking that there are factions fighting each other. They don't understand that these factions have been created and engineered by one entity. And the entity is whoever has that Ring of Solomon who sits in the City of London or underneath it. I don't know. So, yeah, man. The whole idea of Britain having this ridiculously small, army that's pathetic and can't do anything, it's somewhat true, but that's all part of the deception to hide the clandestine operation network that exists everywhere. Secret armies all across the world. Double agents all throughout your government, all throughout your military. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up now because I didn't want this recording to go on too long. We live in a twilight world. There are no friends at dusk.